In this video, we are going to look at eukaryotes. So as a review, remember all cells have the following organelles. They all have a plasma membrane, cytoplasm, and ribosomes, and all cells also have DNA. Now, eukaryotes, eu means true. Karyote means nucleus. So eukaryotes means that they have a true nucleus. They evolved from prokaryotes, and they represent every organism on Earth except for bacteria. Now, eukaryotes can be unicellular, like a paramecium, or multicellular, like a human. They're much larger, just in general, than prokaryotes. They're much more complex. And very importantly, they have membrane-bound organelles. So pro have no, you do. So here's an example of a membrane-bound organelle. So in this prokaryote, the DNA is just floating in the cytoplasm. It is not surrounded by its own particular membrane, not the cell membrane, but its own specific membrane. So this is a non-membrane-bound organelle. Whereas in a eukaryote, the DNA is surrounded by a membrane that creates the nucleus. So this would represent a membrane-bound organelle. It is a separate membrane surrounding a part of the cell other than the plasma membrane. So these are the membrane-bound organelles that we are going to look at. There's about 8 of them, and you're going to need to know each one of them. So again, the non-membrane-bound organelles, plasma membrane, cytoplasm, ribosome, and the cell wall. Remember, again, all cells have these 3. Only eukaryotes have the membrane-bound ones. So let's look at each one of these. So here we have the nucleus. It's got its own membrane. It's like the boss because it stores the DNA. And in a eukaryote, this DNA is linear, and it'll form chromosomes, which we've talked about. I remember this as the nucleus stores the nucleic acids, the DNA. The rough endoplasmic reticulum, just remember rough ER, they're like factories because they store ribosomes, which build proteins. So you can see all these little dots on the membrane of the rough ER are ribosomes. So the ribosomes make it rough. That's why it's called the rough ER. Lysosomes are like little recycling centers, and they have enzymes that help break down and recycle materials. So the lysosomes slice up materials, and lyse actually means to break apart. The vacuole, as you can see, it's got its own membrane, and it's like a storage facility. It stores water and other materials, potentially food. It's bigger in plants, but it's found in all types of eukaryotes. And many people remember it kind of like a vacuum. The vacuole, like a vacuum, sucks up and stores stuff. The Golgi apparatus is like the post office. Because what it does is it actually packages and ships materials around the cell so that things get where they need to go. It also is involved in folding proteins. And it has these little vesicles, which are like vehicles. These are like the Postal Service trucks that help carry the materials to where they need to go. Chloroplasts, they're like a farm because they make food through the process of photosynthesis. And animals don't have these. Plants and protists like algae do because they do photosynthesis. And I just remember chloroplasts color the plants. Mitochondria, those are the powerhouse of the cell. They make usable energy. So all cells are going to need these to make usable energy. And you think mighty mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell. Now, one thing to note about these is they both do a lot of reactions, and so they have these folded membranes that allow for more enzymes and more surface area for those reactions to happen. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum, just like the rough, was like a factory, except the rough makes proteins, the smooth makes other things, specifically lipids. Now, let's talk about making an animal cell. So if we're making a basic animal cell, we start with the things that everybody's got to have. They got to have a cell membrane. They got to have cytoplasm. They got to have DNA, which in this case is going to be in a nucleus. They have to have ribosomes, which in this case are going to be attached to the rough ER. They have lysosomes to break down materials. They have a vacuole to store materials, a Golgi apparatus to fold proteins and ship stuff around, mitochondria to make usable energy, and smooth ER in order to make lipids and other macromolecules. And that's basically your general animal cell. Now, to make a plant cell, we have to add a couple things. We add a cell wall on the outside, and remember this is for structure, and it's made of cellulose, that carbohydrate. And then we're going to add some chloroplasts because plants do photosynthesis.